Well, howdy, physics sleuths and inquisitive souls, and welcome again to another lecture of Sermon of Sean. So, today we are going to explore God a little bit deeper. As I said I would do until we hit rock bottom, which will probably be right about when the Great Tribulation ends, about another year. At least I'm planning it that way. We'll find out. But yeah. So what I want to talk about today is God when He wages wars. Okay. When God wages wars, He likes to do it humanely. So okay. He doesn't like to inflict a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering and grief upon those that He's about to smite and vanquish and slay. Okay. And in fact, a lot of times when God is going to be on your side for a battle, what He'll do is He'll cause great confusion and distraction in the enemy forces so that they will either be so terrified and overwhelmed from really nothing at all except fear itself that they will immediately retreat unconditionally or surrender, or they will actually turn on themselves and murder themselves. It's kind of bizarre, but that's the way it is, all right? And so this has happened recently, all right? Let's see here. Let's go here. Okay. First, let's start with the story of ISIS, okay? ISIS, was an Islamic caliphate that came to power in the area of Iraq and Syria, like, I don't know, around 2012, whatever. And they took over, like, large swaths of territory, even up to, like, a third of Iraq and Syria, both themselves. Literally, they could have easily carved out their own little country with how much territory they had taken so quickly and rapidly. And this was a thing that would happen with ISIS. This was no shit. Like in Iraqi forces, Iraqi army, ISIS would charge at them in Toyota pickup trucks with like a machine gun mounted on the back and their AKs hanging out the window. And just the sight of these pickup trucks coming over the hills and from a distance would scare the Iraqi army so much that they would immediately abandon their position and retreat, leaving all of their weapons and vehicles, everything behind, and just running off into the desert for their lives. Even when the Iraqi army outnumbered the ISIS troops 10-1, they were still overwhelmed with fear and abandoned everything and ran for the hills. Starting to sound familiar? Like God's signature when He gets involved in shit? Yeah. We're going deep on this one. So, I went to Iraq. I was there. I killed a bunch of people there. And while the Iraqi army I would not consider a strong fighting force by any standard, I ain't never heard of them just abandoning a post and running for their lives, okay, from insurgents coming at them. They're used to this all the time. This is not, something that they weren't used to. So the fact that they did that, I find very uncharacteristic. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. It just is odd for them to run away, even when they clearly outnumber their attacking force 10-1. It's bizarre. All right. So ISIS takes over large swaths of Syria and Iraq. Okay. And they did this with this tactic, just charging at posts and discombobulation and seizing whatever they captured. Halo rolls, okay? And in 2015, I think it was, uh, they did something. I believe it's called now the Camp Speaker Massacre. I believe this is the incident. Um, June 2014, the Islamic State executed, they say, 1 to 2,000 Iraqi Shiites. I remember when this first happened, the number was reported at 5,000. And then it later got retconned years after the fact to 2,000. I think it was more than 2,000 people that died. Okay, I'm going to say it was closer to probably 4,000, being realistic. And I saw the videos of this. I saw it. I saw the videos. They had a long line that was like endless, like hundreds and hundreds of Iraqi Shiites that they had, captured from this camp, whatever. Excuse me, drain bram just getting blown up in Iraq. And they lined them up, and they had, guys with AKs on the side, so they couldn't run away. They'd shoot them. And they'd walk them up to the dock on the Tigris River. And a dude had a pistol, and it would just pop right in the back of the head and kick their corpse into the river. And then their body would float, splurting blood out into the river, float downriver. And they did this for 3 days and 3 nights straight, nonstop. And the result was the Tigris River flowed blood red for 3 days and 3 nights. And that's a pretty extreme thing to do. And in fact, it was the deadliest terrorist act in Iraq ever, and the second deadliest single act of terrorism the world had ever seen, surpassed only by 9/11. And that's because in 9/11, like 3,000 people died, and they claim only like 1,700. But I'm telling you, I saw the video. I believe the original reports more, that was more closer to 5,000 people. Okay? And then the ones that they didn't execute in the river, they cut their heads off and put them on poles, on sticks. And they had a line of these sticks with heads on them that literally was like a mile long. It was insane. From the video that I saw, it was pretty ridiculous. Okay, it was pretty gory. Pretty crazy thing to do, right? Why did they do this? They did this because this is like the fourth sign of the apocalypse that had to happen for the end of the world. The one particularly that says, and the rivers of the Tigris or Euphrates, whatever, will flow blood red for 3 days straight. That's what the prophecy says. And it had to happen, or we could not have our end times. Armageddon, all right? So, someone from ISIS who was in charge claimed that God had given them a vision, and it told them, hey, I need this done. I propped you up to do this. And if you do this for me, I will legitimize your caliphate. That's what he said. That's what God told him, right? So, they did this as God commanded them to. And, yeah. So, if we go into the story of ISIS, we see here that around that time, before, at April 13th, by April 2013, ISIS tried to combine their forces in Iraq and Syria with Nusra Front. which is another Islamic, thing, and they're the ones that I believe were the kind of the front runners that eventually took over Syria in 2014. Okay, toppled the Syrian government. I believe they were the kind of the front runners in that whole coalition of forces that did that. Okay, it was basically a hodgepodge of everybody that was going up against Assad and his regime. Okay, um, now me knowing that God isn't the kind to break promises, I'm thinking that the fall of Syria served two purposes. One, to give those fighters who were pretty damn sure, a lot of them previous ISIS guys who, did that, and now they have their own country that they always wanted, a legitimate caliphate, a legitimate government. It may not be under the ISIS flag like maybe they assumed it would be, but ultimately these are the same guys, okay? And they got what God promised them, their own plot of land that will be theirs, that they can run how they wish, okay? So, we have God using ISIS, creating ISIS, propping them up by making the Iraqi army surrender to them and giving them all their materials, okay? And then he told them, he gave them order, do this or I'm going to fucking destroy you. And if you do it for me, I will, hook you up. Pretty obvious what they're going to do. They're going to serve God. And so they did this. They execute all these thousands of Shiites in the Tigris River to fulfill this prophecy, okay? And now it's done. And I believe that was that being summed up, okay? Nipping all the loose ends, okay? Now, the fall of the Assad regime happened in like December 8th in 2024, okay? Just to let you know, like the force that started this campaign, I don't even think started it till I think it was like November 27th, and they really didn't get going until like December 3rd. Okay, so they pretty much just took over all of Syria in 5 days, and the reports and the videos that were coming out was very similar to how ISIS took over Iraq and Syria. This regime would just charge headfirst, not one fuck given, at Assad's regime, and Assad's regime would be so overwhelmed and terrified by the sight that they would abandon their post and just run. And they just kept retreating and retreating and retreating until eventually they retreated all the way back to Damascus, the final hold, and that fell like in a day, okay? So, that was God's war, okay? He propped up ISIS, and then he destroyed Assad's regime and essentially gave that land to the people that he promised a caliphate to. Roughly. May not be one-to-one exact, pretty damn close though, I'm telling you. Okay? Now, Assad thought he could get away. Okay? He was given permission to retreat back to Moscow because he was Putin's puppet and Putin's permanent foothold into the Middle East, controlling Syria, kind of like we have a permanent foothold with Saudi Arabia with all the bargains and deals we have with them and a lot of other people too, okay? So that was Putin's foothold in the Middle East, and it has been taken away from him, okay? So Assad, he tries to get on the airplane and go, right? Is this? Yeah. See, they don't even say, they say that he died on December 8th, I know, he was at an office, my bad. Did they even say he died? I don't even know if they have an office. Did they not have a freaking death date? I don't even see a death date for this. Years of service, born, age 60. Yeah. So according to Wikipedia, Assad's not dead yet. Okay? Just get that, just know that. According to Wikipedia, Assad is still alive. But God wanted him dead. And when God wants you dead, you're fucking dead. That's it. Game over. You're a grease spot. Get over it. You done fucked the pooch one too many times, and now it's time to pay the piper. Okay? So, Assad, he we don't know if he was killed in the plane, but here's his plane. Okay, his plane took off from Damascus. Okay, the final foothold, and then flew out, and then whatever reason went to Homs. Okay, and there his transponder completely died and cut out, and all radar contact with the plane was lost. All right. Here's what they know. Okay. Last night we tracked, that was a plane type. It was a Russian Soviet plane, old one. Fly over Syria. Took off from Damascus. The signal was lost in the city of Homs. We can confirm the flight took place. The aircraft was old, with an older transponder generation. Some data might be bad or missing. The aircraft was flying in the area of GPS jamming. Some data might be bad, but we know it was over there in that area. Still, we believe the data journal is quite good indication of what happened to the aircraft. We're not aware of any airports in the area where the signal was lost. So the lost on radar, the lost on transponder, there's nowhere from the land the plane went down. Whether it was shot down, whether it was sabotage, whether it was just an old clunker that fell out of the sky, who knows? But we know this, God wanted him dead, and dead he will be. Because as long as he's alive and propped up by Putin, wanting to keep bolstering him and to get him back into power so Putin can have his permanent foothold in the Middle East, so Assad has to die. He has to be dead. So this cannot happen anymore. So there's no more confusion about who is in charge of Syria. Okay? So God killed him. Get him off the chessboard. Okay? That piece gone. The king's gone. Game's over. Fuck you. So, now, some other instances where God has done this, like won wars very quickly with almost zero casualties, is a very famous one. The 6-Day War with Israel. Okay? If anyone thinks that God does not still smile upon the nation of Israel, then please explain to me the 6-Day War, where Israel single-handedly whooped all of the Middle East's ass in 6 days. I don't even think they took one casualty. Maybe they had one airplane that went down, maybe, if at that. Pretty ridiculous, okay? They whooped all the Middle East nations, but, okay, in 6 days. Now, a lot of that was preemptive strikes on airports to get their aircraft out of play, and then after that, they didn't have much support they could offer to their little endeavor war against Israel, all the Arab nations that try to, combine up against Israel, okay? But just know this, entire Middle East resolved itself to destroy Israel, and somehow Israel whooped all their asses in 6 days, not even taking one casualty. Seems like the signature of God to me. Okay? Another instance where this occurred, always in Israel, not always, but a lot in Israel, because God, has to take care of Israel. They're the smallest nation with the least amount of people. They get picked on a lot. A lot of people hate them. They're a scapegoat for a lot of religions. God has to protect them in very strong hand a lot of times, or they ain't going to be around, and God ain't going to have that. He's going to have his people be around. Okay? So, another instance, we have Gideon Spring, okay? Gideon Spring is like the ultimate story of God saying, fuck you, okay? The basic story is like the Midianites, whatever, they're going up against Gideon and his forces, and he got like 22,000 men, right? He bolstered 22,000 men to fight like these people. And they were still outnumbered. There was like 30,000 or 40 or 50,000, they're going up against. They were outnumbered. But God had a point he wanted to make. So he told Gideon, tell everybody who doesn't want to fight, you're good. We don't need you. Go away. It is not your day. I still love you. Go away. And so Gideon did that, right? And his forces went from like 22,000, I think it says here. Yeah. 22,000 returned and only 10,000 remained. So I guess he had 32,000 people, okay? Still outnumbered. But God told Gideon to send, everybody didn't want to fight. So he's only left with 10,000 people, all right? Now, they're still outnumbered right now, like 5-1, okay? God don't care. He's about to flex his muscle to show you some, all right? So then God says, take your 10,000 men, let them get a sip of water from Gideon's spring. And those that sip the water with like both hands or something, send them home. And those that sip the water with one hand, let them stay and fight. So he does this, right? Only like 300 people sip the water with one hand. So Gideon's like, oh, I guess now we got 300 people. And God's like, perfect. I love those odds. And Gideon's like, 300 men against like 50,000. And God's like, yes, let's go. Okay, so God tells him, get like a bunch of torches and horns and stuff and surround the enemy's camp. And then at night, I want you to light the torches, like 2 torches each person, and blow the horns and just make a lot of noise and pretend that you're a whole lot more people than you really are. And Gideon's like, and then? And God's like, don't worry about it, I got you. Okay, so they do this. And as soon as they do this, the enemy forces freaked out, overwhelmed, discombobulated like they always are when God's involved. And they actually turned on each other and killed each other, having no clue who was enemy, friend, or foe. 50,000 men killed each other because 300 men surrounded them with torches and horns and blew them. Are you a believer in the power of God now? Unless you got another way that 300 men can destroy 50,000. I mean, I know 300 Spartans are pretty damn good and Thermopylae, but maybe God was involved in that one too, baby. He's been all around the world. He's been around longer than we have. He's been playing his games, getting his pieces where he wants them to be so that this is going to end the way he wants it to since the get-go. You're a fool if you don't see that. I'm sorry. So, that's the story of how God wins wars. And this is not the only, this is many times in the Bible this has happened. I'm just showing you some obvious examples where it's like, yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's pretty ridiculous that happened. Yeah, because God wanted it to happen, okay? Now, I told you there's 2 reasons why God destroyed Syria, Assad's regime, okay? Maybe 3. God usually loves 3 for reasons to do something. Find some all one. One is to reward the caliphate members who helped usher in like the 4th sign of the apocalypse, which is like, making the Tigris River flow blood red for 3 days, okay? Another one's probably to take out Assad because he probably did a whole lot of horrific things that God was not cool with, okay? The third one as soon as the war happened, right? So we got the Golan Heights, this territory that Israel took back in like 1967 from the 6-Day War that we kind of talked about, okay? They took this area, but it's not been recognized as given to Israel, okay? But they do control it. They don't anybody else control it. So when Assad's regime had fell, Israel lobbied to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the territory on 8th of December 2024, following the fall of Assad's regime of Syria, Israeli forces seized Syrian positions in the UNDOF buffer zone. So they had this buffer zone, and now all of a sudden, now that Syria has been wiped out of the board as a major player, Israel is going to forcibly take that land, knowing there's really no one that's going to stop them. Okay, so they did it to the Golan Heights. They did it to. I have it here too. After the collapse of the Assad regime of Syria, offensives on December 8th, Israel forces took over the highest summit of Mount Hermon. Okay, so there's other places. This is not the only thing. Okay, basically, immediately as soon as Syria fell, Israel started claiming a bunch of land and taking it and controlling it and seizing it, saying that it's theirs now. Okay, and you're like, doesn't seem like a very neighborly thing to do, right? Let's look into why. Okay, if we go to the Bible, Jeremiah 33. What we've got here, for lo, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah, saith the Lord. And I will cause them to return to the land I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. So, this is God basically saying, listen, Israel, Jews pissed me off one too many times. I'm going to give them the beat stick, and I'm going to disperse them around the world, and then I'm going to create World War II, and Adolf Hitler, and bring him to power. And he's going to do such horrible things to the Jews with the genocide, right, that they will have no choice but to return to Israel because that's the only place they'll feel safe. Okay? And here's the most important part. And the land that I gave to their fathers, meaning the covenant that God made with Abraham, telling him all the land that he would give him, which actually went very far. God said he's going to restore this and give them the land back that's been taken from them over the eons. Okay? So, that's the reason, mainly, why God intervened and destroyed Syria. Okay? Three things. He wanted to take out Assad because he was a bad dude and he did a lot of bad things. He was not a very good follower of righteousness. He was a godless government, otherwise known as a beast in the Bible. Okay? When the Bible is talking about a beast, 9 times out of 10, what it's referencing is a godless government. A government that does not follow, there's not in accordance with what God wants them to do. Even if they're pretending to be and they're trying to be and they're all super religious fanatics, but we're the most religious hardcore thing. Cool, but did God ever tell you that's what he fucking wanted from you? Cool, you're a beast. So, that's the situation, okay? To take out Assad, to fulfill his promise, to legitimate the people that ushered in like it was like the third or the fourth sign of the apocalypse, which is like to make the Tigris River flow blood red, and to restore land, swaths of land that were taken from Israel a long time ago, and that Israel is now going to reclaim inch by inch. Okay? So, there's a few things we need to learn from this, okay, about our God. Number one, he does not break his promises. If he tells you he's going to give you a legitimate caliphate, he's going to do it. If he tells you he's going to give you back your lands, he's going to do it. If he tells you he's going to do this, he's going to do it, okay? He may not do it on the timeline you want, but God operates in the way that he operates, okay? And he's going to do what he said he's going to do because that's God. He's goodness. That's the redeeming quality of the universe, that without honor, without trust, you just have a bunch of savages, animals running around looking to fucking fight and kill each other until there's no one left. Okay? So the only way that intelligent life can pervade and dominate in the universe, or a galaxy at least, certainly, is to be charitable, kind, and generous, all the qualities that God adores and loves and seeks in us, his children. Okay? Another thing is, even an event as horrible as ISIS executing potentially up to 5,000 Shiites in the most brutal, horrific, and bloody manner that you could imagine, can still be God's work and hand and action. Because there are things that has to happen for our timeline to be fulfilled as God has seen it. And God wants us on this timeline, okay? Like Charlie Kirk just got shot and murdered, okay? A couple days ago. Some people will be like, well, why would God allow this? He was such a good Christian and blah, blah, blah. Right. But this is the timeline that leads to the events and the outcome that God wants for our species after the Great Tribulation is done. And it gets us our 1,000 years of harmony and perfectness with God. Okay? Before he probably kills us all and then resets the entire program again for another cycle of the soul farm to get souls, but we're not going to that right now. We'll do that later. So, what you need to know, just because it's a horrific terrorist act does not mean it's not part of God's plan. And I know that's a really hard pill to swallow. It takes someone who's really dedicated to seeking the truth and understanding all aspects of, the angles of it all to really comprehend. And I get it. But I'm also a psychopath and I've killed a bunch of people. So for me, spilled blood, does it lead to a lasting peace? I think it was probably worth it. But what do I know? I'm crazy. Like the blood moon I was born under. So, I just want you guys to know this, okay? To help you learn more about your God and kind of how he moves and operates and ultimately what he's hoping to get from you in this whole grand scheme. And I'm going to go so deep into this whole... I told you I was going to figure everything out and explain it all to you on physics and the whole universe. And did I not deliver? If you think I didn't, look at my previous videos on gravity and physics and everything, okay? And I promised I would do the same for religion and God. I would get to rock bottom of it all and explain it to you in a way that made sense, where your brain could be copacetic with it all, okay? It's going to take some time, though. Luckily, we still have some time left. We got, by my clock, probably about a year to the date before Putin nukes all NATO countries and sends the world into a 5-month-long nuclear winter, killing 2/3 of the planet. And now you might be thinking, well, why would God do that? Because that gets us on the timeline where we want to be on, where we have the 1,000 years of peace and prosperity, harmony, and bliss with God, okay? And more about that later. But anyways, all right, I think we've gone over enough today. It's been a lot. I'm sure some of you probably, a little confused. So we'll deal with this later. We'll decompress another time. Until then, have a beautiful day. Adios, muchachos. Until next time.
Like, subscribe, submit.